Hello to everybody. Today our guest is Jason Knight, a BKFC fighter and a former UFC vet. Can you please introduce yourself?
Man, I'm Jason Knight. I fought 9 times in the UFC, and now I fought 2 times for BKFC. Both BKFC fights were against Artem Lobov, and we had a real good fight the first time. The second time, I went out there and I did my thing and got him. I put him away in the fifth round, and now I'm just seeing where it goes. I'm probably gonna fight BKFC a few more times, and probably fight a few MMA fights this year. See if maybe I can make it back to the UFC.
Great. When did you start training MMA?
I started training MMA when I was 14 years old. I had my first MMA fight a few months in, and been training ever since.
Can you explain your moniker? Nickname, the
Can
kid.
My nickname, whenever I was 14, my second amateur fight, they put me in for a title fight. And I think they were pretty much just trying to give the other guy a win. But that was the time of my first interview, and they asked me, what I want my nickname to be. And I told the lady, I was like, you don't give your own self a nickname. That's something that someone else gives you. And the lady was like, okay, well, we're just going to call you the kid because that's how you are anyways as a kid. I was like, all right, sounds good. And I've been Jason the Kid Knight ever since.
Do you have a trademark punch?
Do I have a trademark punch?
Yes.
Probably my straight right. I've got a good straight right. I haven't knocked a whole lot of people out, but I've knocked a lot of people down with that straight right. And I probably could have finished them with punches, but I'm real good at my submissions. So a lot of the times when I'd knock them down with a punch, I would get on top on the ground, and I would see an arm bar, or see a triangle or something, and I would take it.
Do you still remember your first fight, how it looked like against Patrick Needham? How was it? Was it a tough battle or?
My first fight
Yeah.
at 14.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that hard of a fight, man. It was pretty easy. My first amateur fight, I was 14, and the guy who I fought, he was 19, and I beat him in about 30 seconds with a rear naked choke. After that, I fell in love with the sport, and I never stopped after that.
Oh, awesome. Way to go, man. About your interim Atlas title fight.
Say that one more time.
Interim Atlas title fight, you were Atlas champion, and how did it went? How was the promotion? Who were you fighting? And
For Atlas, man, I think I fought for them like 7 times, and I loved it. They were a very good promotion. I fought a guy named Mike Roberts was my first loss. I take that back. I fought a guy named Sean Hayes, and I beat him for the interim title. And then my next fight, I lost to a guy named Mike Roberts, but it was a non-title fight. And then after that, the guy who was the actual champion, his name was Matt McCook. He came back, and I fought him, and I beat Matt McCook in probably a minute and a half with a rear naked choke. So, I went on to win the title, and I defended it probably at least 4 or 5 times for Atlas. And, not my last fight with Atlas, but the fight before that, I rematched that guy, Mike Roberts, the one who gave me my first loss, and I beat him in the rematch. And after that, I had one more fight with them, and then I fought for Titan FC, and then went on to the UFC.
how was your UFC debut? How did it go?
I lost to a guy named Tatsuya Kawajiri. At the time, he was number 13 in the world, and I took the fight on 2 weeks' notice. I hadn't been training at all because I had just had my little boy November the 24th, and I wasn't training at all. And I get the call the day that my little boy was born. Asked me if I wanted to fight in the UFC on December the 11th, and I told him yes. And I trained as hard as I could in those few weeks, but I went out there and I almost caught him in a submission the first minute or so of the round, and then after that it was just he would take me down, he would lay on top of me, barely doing anything, and he was good at defending the submissions. Every time we were standing up, I felt like I was winning the stand-up exchanges, but he was able to get me to the ground easier because he was a better wrestler, and he was able to defend the submissions the whole time.
How did you take care of Ronald Jacobs?
Ronald Jacobs, I fought him twice. The first time I fought him was as an amateur, and I beat him by triangle. The second time, I threw a body kick. I believe it was the first round. I tried to throw a body kick, and he ducked right into it, and I kicked him in the face. And he fell down, and I hit him a few times, and the fight was over. They called it a knockout.
Got to say it was a great win, and versus Tony Way, nasty inverted triangle. I got to say, I think it's one of your best submissions, right?
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorites. I had an inverted triangle, and the way you finish that inverted triangle, you roll down and you grab the leg, and so it's kind of like an inverted triangle and a knee bar at the same time, and it got a tap out of him. It was pretty nice. I had his back, and he was standing with me on his back, and he tried to reach back with his hand and pull my leg off of him, and I went straight to the triangle from there and got the finish.
Awesome, man. And that Gogo Plata against Gilbert Burgos was also a sick one, amazing one. It's a hard submission, very hard to do.
Yeah, man, I won my 10th amateur fight by Gogo Plata. And then I won that fight against Gilbert Burgos by Gogo Plata. And, other than that, I really haven't heard of a whole lot of people winning an MMA fight with a Gogo Plata. So, it's a rare submission for sure.
Tell me about your match versus Alex Caceres. How did it go?
Alex Caceres, man, that was a fun fight. He standing up, he was probably a little more slick than I was. I knocked him down once or twice, but other than that, he was kind of outpointing me, and I realized that pretty quick. I realized that he was landing more punches than I was, landing more kicks than I was. So I took the fight to the ground, and then once I took the fight to the ground, it was all me. He had nothing for me on the ground, and in the second round, when I took his back, he couldn't get me off, and I started throwing elbows, to try to land on his shoulder blades to soften him up, until finally I was able to sink in the rear naked choke. I won that fight, and I got a $50,000 bonus off of that fight. So that was probably one of my favorite UFC wins for sure.
Fantastic. How was your match versus Gabriel Benitez?
Oh man, Gabriel Benitez, that was a rough night. I caught strep throat a week before the fight, and I probably should have backed out, but I didn't. And I went out there the first round, and I felt like the first half of the round I was winning, and then they stopped the fight for a second because I was going for a takedown, and he stuck his fingers in my mouth. And I don't know if I bit him on purpose or if it was like instinct or maybe like I was gritting for the takedown, but I bit his fingers, so they stopped the fight for a few minutes. And whenever they started the fight back, I had zero energy left. I was dead. And after that, I took a whooping. I sat there and got beat on for the rest of the fight, and I could barely even hold my hands up. But I didn't quit. I gave it the best that I had.
Great. And tell me, how did you decide in the end? I mean, you decided to switch to bare knuckle, okay, but you were a good puncher, you were a good submission guy. What led you to switch in the promotion to go into bare knuckle? It's a pretty much new sport, but a very popular.
I got kicked out of the UFC because I had too many losses in a row. And after I announced that I was kicked out of the UFC, bare knuckle was one of the first promotions that that give me a call and wanted me to fight for them. and I told them to get with my manager, see if we could make a deal. And they got with my manager, and they came, with a pretty good offer. So we went for it, and I'm glad I did, man, because me and Artem in that first fight, we made history. We fought a fight that people are always going to remember, and that's the kind of fight I've always looked for.
Yeah, this was the best BKFC bout I have ever seen. I follow it from time to time, but this match, 5 rounds, you were fighting all the time. It's not like you were tacticians, and it was constant striking on both sides. First match was amazing. In the second match, what happened in the fifth round? I watched the video many times. I saw that right. Was it a left hand KO? What actually happened?
I think it was just an accumulation of damage to that eye. Um, I threw an overhand right and it missed, and I threw a left uppercut and it landed right on his eye. And I think after that, he couldn't take it anymore. Whenever I got in the back to get my hand stitched up, the doctor said that he had like 60 stitches in his face. His teeth that went through his bottom lip, and then that eye, he said that eye had like 3 different cuts on it. So, I don't know if maybe it was just like the pain, or maybe his orbital bone got broke, or what happened, but he was just, he was in pain.
So, what do you think? Who will you fight next in BKFC?
No clue right now. I haven't even tried to get a fight yet. I told them probably March or April. I told them I would probably fight in March or April. I had to let my right hand heal up. It was right at the end of the second round. I hit him with a couple uppercuts, and it cut my knuckle to the bone. And it's been taking a while for it to heal up. I think it kind of messed up the ligaments or something. But it's pretty much healed now, and I'm ready to fight. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Great, I'm so glad for it. I also, whenever I was watching your fight, every fight was interesting. BKFC, UFC, and I think you're one very, very entertaining fighter to watch. And would you like to add something more? Would you like to say something more? Is there something we missed?
Not really, man. I think you pretty much covered it all. I'm gonna fight MMA a few times this year, and whenever I got kicked out of the UFC, they told me to go pick up a few wins in MMA, and they would bring me back. So I'm gonna go try to pick up a few wins and see what they do. But if not, I enjoy bare knuckle. It's a sport that I fell in love with, and I don't mind staying where I'm at as well. So.
Awesome.
There's pretty good money in bare knuckle. There's pretty good money in UFC. The only reason I would even really want to make it back to the UFC is just to kind of prove to myself that I can do more. I always knew that I could do more than what I did, and I would like to get there and do exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, it's awesome, and you also balance pretty much well between family, between obligations, between everything. It's never an easy job, but you're doing it great.
Yeah, man, it's definitely something hard to do, but if you love the sport, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you so much for this lovely interview, and I hope I'll post it maybe in 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, sounds good, brother. I appreciate it.
Alright, thank you so much. Have a great day, Jason.
Yes, sir. You have a good day.